Begin today the Gemara on Daf Samech Gimel Amud Beis, 7 lines up from the bottom of the Yamud, where the Gemara here continues to discuss something that's related to the Mishnah in the beginning of this Pedic. The Mishnah here says, "Aseicher es apayil," a person hires a worker, a yid, to do work for Avoda Zara. So there was a knas, the way the Gemara explained it. The Chachamim gave a knas that any wages that you get paid for this is aser b'hana. So here the Gemara brings another case of work where a yid is working with Avoda Zara, and there's a question here whether this income will be aser or not.
Who hired him? The yid?
A guy? No, a guy. A guy is hiring him to work with Avoda Zara. Sagt the Gemara, Yosef Rav Nachman v'Ula v'Avimi bar Papi. These three Amirayim were sitting together, and v'Yosef Rav Chia bar Ami gabayu, and Rav Chia bar Ami is sitting together with them. V'Yosfi, and they're sitting, and v'Kamabayu luhu, and they had the following shaila. And as we'll see here in the continuation of the Gemara, we're discussing a few different things, and these are all inyanim that are related to what we're discussing here regarding Avoda Zara. V'Kamabayu luhu, their shaila was Sachroi lishbar b'yayin nesach. A guy hires a yid to break the barrels of the wine that are holding this yayin nesach, and the wine is going to spill and go to the garbage. Mahu, what's the halacha regarding this work? Is the yid allowed to have hana from what he's getting paid for this work? So you may think, well, of course, the yid is breaking the barrels to spill out the yayin nesach, which is asaba hana. What should be better than that? Why shouldn't he be allowed to have hana from this? So the Gemara explains. The shaila is, mi amrina, and do we say, kivin der reitze b'kiyumai aser, because he wants that wine to be there in the barrels for him to come and do the work to break it. So first, before I explain what the Gemara is saying, what's this inyan of reitze b'kiyumai? Reitze b'kiyumai is one of the things that is aser by Avoda Zara, because by Avoda Zara, the Torah says that you have to, when you come into Eretz Yisrael or B'chlal Avoda Zara, you have to break and get rid of the Avoda Zara. If you have Avoda Zara and you're preserving it, you reitze b'kiyuma, you want it to continue to be, to exist, then there's an isser in that. Some say it's isser min ha'Torah, other Rishonim say it's isser min d'Rabbanan, but reitze b'kiyuma in itself is an isser. Now over here, this yid that's being hired to break these barrels, to get rid of this wine, for whatever reason the guy wants to get rid of this wine, the yid, ironically, actually wants the wine to continue being in the barrels until he's going to come and break. If these barrels are just going to break on their own and the wine is going to spill out, then the yid is not going to have a job. He's not going to get paid. So in order for him to have a job and to get paid, he wants the barrels of wine to remain intact. So therefore, so since he's doing work and his work is all relying on the fact that the wine is going to stay in the barrel, so he wants the wine to be there in order for him to be able to do this work. So therefore, the knas of Chachamim not to have hana from the wages that you paid from work with Avoda Zara will apply here as well. The whole basis of his work is reitze b'kiyumai, so therefore it's aser. Or perhaps we say that kol lemu'ute tifla shapid dami. Anything a person does in order to minimize the tifla, the nonsense of the Avoda Zara, and in this case the yayin nesach. So even though, he wants b'kiyumai, but the action that he's doing though is to get rid of this yayin nesach, to spill it out, and therefore that's good. That's okay. You could have hana from this kind of work. Rav Nachman, from the group of the Amiram that was sitting together, Rav Nachman answered, Yishbar, he should do this work, let him break the barrels, V'tavi olav bracha, and it's actually a good thing. He's spilling out the yayin nesach, so no yid should come to drink from it. So if the point is that you see from here that in such a kind of case where you sort of want to preserve it for you to be able to do the work, but what's the work you're going to do? To get rid of it, that's good, that's okay. So the Gemara says, shall we say we have a raya to Rav Nachman's psak din from the following brayse? Ein oidrin ima oivdik echavim beklayim. The brayse says you may not do work with a guy in a field of klayim, that a guy is allowed to plant klayim for himself. It doesn't apply to him, the sisser. But there's a mixture in the field of different things that a yid is not allowed to plant. The guy is allowed, but the yid though is not allowed to dig and do work in this field to improve the growth of the klayim. So in other words, not only the Isser is not only not to plant klayim, but even oidrin, to do work in the field, is not allowed. Aval oikrin imai, however, a yid could uproot the klayim kedei lemute satifla, in order to get rid of this tifla. Is again this expression that means something that's nonsense or something that's aser. So in this case, it's the klayim that the guy is hiring this yid to do the work to get rid of this kalayim in his field. So this is exactly the kind of case that we're talking about before regarding Avoda Zara, regarding the Yain Nesach, that the Yid over here as well, he doesn't want this kalayim to be washed away and get uprooted on its own. He wants to be the one that's going to uproot it in order for him to get paid for his work. So he's reitze b'kiyumai. He wants the kiyum of this kalayim. And yet the Braisa is saying that when the Yid is doing this work, to be memayit is tifla, it's allowed. So we can learn from here the same thing regarding the case of the Yain Nesach. Okay, but now
to do with Avoda Zara.
No, it's nothing to do with Avoda Zara.
But Reitze b'kiyuma has to do with Avoda Zara.
By Avoda Zara, it's reitze b'kiyumai, but here we're talking about the reitze and the kiyum of the client. So just like by the
Reitze b'kiyuma of the client.
That's the continuation of the Gemara. So the Gemara will explain this right now, that this price here is going according to the opinion that says that by kalayim as well, if he's right to b'kiyuma, it's aser. Let's see. So the Gemara Savrua. So the ones that brought the right to Rav Nachman from this brisa, they thought to say that Hamani Rav Akivahi. This brisa regarding kalayim is Rav Akiva's opinion. The Amar Rav Akiva says Hamakayim b'kalayim loike, that a person that this kalayim already that's there, that's planted, someone else planted it. Now you're just coming and preserving it. Rashi says, for example, you put up a fence around it and you want it to remain, to be there. So that for that itself you get malchus. Okay, so it has to be a certain action that the person is doing in order to get malchus. He puts up a fence, he does something. But the point there is that according to Rabbi Akiva, the Isser of kalayim is not just the planting the kalayim or any other work that you do, like the Tanakama said here, or the Lashon in the beginning of the Braisa, oidrin, that he's digging, but it's also any kind of kiyum that you want to preserve it, and therefore this is compared to the case of Avoda Zara. Just like by Avoda Zara, there's an isser of a person just keeping the Avoda Zara, and on that, Rav Nachman paskin that if the Yid is coming to break the barrels, that it's okay. We're not going to give any knas. He could have anah from this. Similar regarding kalayim. He wants to, there's an isser of keeping the kalayim. And this Yid now here, when he's uprooting this kalayim for the guy, he wants to keep that kalayim for him to come and do this work. And afal pikein, it's mutter. Therefore, from here we can prove regarding the psak din of Rav Nachman.
But he didn't do anything to be Mekayim B'Kalayim. He just wants it to be there.
No, he's working, but he needs truth. But he wants the kalayim. Yeah, over here he's not going to get malchus of that. The point here is not about the malchus. I mentioned before about the malchus. He has to do an action. But over here he's reitze b'kiyumai in order for him to be able to do the work to uproot the kalayim. It's the exact same thing like by the wine. He needs the wine to be in the barrels for him to be the one to break it, and this is allowed. This is good. So the Gemara brings the source of where Rabbi Akiva says this, that just to be Mekayim, the kalayim in itself is the Isser. The Tanya, because we learned the Braisa. Here's the Machlokes. The Tanakama says, Hamanachesh, if you're weeding, you uproot the bad weeds that will help it grow better, or Vamachapa b'kalayim, you're covering with earth the kalayim that's there, like it. That's when you get malchus, because you're actually doing something to make it, to plant it, or to make it grow better. Rabbi Akiva says, Af Hamakayim. Not only if you do these works that makes it grow better, just Makayim, just maintaining the kalayim in the field is already Yasser. Says the Gemara, what's the source of Rabbi Akiva? My time with Rabbi Akiva, O Makra, because in the pasuk it says, Satcha, lo yisizra kalayim, that you should not plant in your field kalayim. Ein liyela zeireya. So in these words of the pasuk, I would say it means only if you're actually planting. Makayim minayin. How do I know if a person is not planting, he's just maintaining it? How do I know that this is also as well? Talmud loima, we darshan, the way we read the pasuk is loy kalayim, or the other gears over here is kalayim satcha loy. That's how the Gemara brings it in other places. If you look inside the pasuk there, it starts off saying behemtucha loysar bia kalayim, and then the pasuk says satcha loysizra kalayim. So the way the Gemara darshans this is that you connect the word kalayim that it said before regarding the behemtucha, kalayim satcha loy. That's how you read it, even though that's not the simple pshat of the pasuk. But usually, when the Torah writes, it first writes, the lashon of the pasuk is a little bit out of order. It should have written that lesizra, then satcha kalayim. That's usually you write the action first, and then the place afterwards. But here the Torah writes satcha, loy sizra kalayim. That's unusual. So therefore, Rabbi Akiva darshans that the word satcha connects to the word before, kalayim satcha loy, which means that you should not maintain kalayim in your field even if you're not planting it there. Okay, so therefore, ve'ilu, what do we see over here? That's according to Rabbi Akiva. What is this Braisa saying? That even though you're not allowed to maintain the Kalayim, but if you want to maintain it, you want to keep it there. But for what purpose? Lemu'ute tifla, because you're now going to be the one to uproot it. Shari, that is allowed. So therefore, we could say the same thing regarding a yid that's being hired to break the barrels of the yayin nesach. Says the Gemara, not necessarily is this Braisa according to Rabbi Akiva's opinion. Halmani, I can tell you who's this Braisa going according to Rabbanan. This Braisa goes according to the Rabbanan. According to the Rabbanan, you're allowed to maintain Kalayim. So if you're allowed to maintain Kalayim, so when the Braisa says that a Yid that's being hired to uproot the Kalayim with the guy, it's allowed. Why is it allowed? Because according to the Rabbanan, there's Bechlal no Issa to maintain Kalayim. So there's no raya from here to our case that we're talking about by Yayin Nesach. By the Yayin Nesach, there's an Isser of Roitze B'Kiyumai. But over here, B'Negei to the Kalayim, if this Braisa is according to the Rabbanan, you know why you're allowed to uproot the Kalayim with the guy? Because there's Bechlal no Issa to maintain the Kalayim. Yeah, but the Gemara asks him this right away. If you're going to say that this Braisa is going according to the Rabbanan, Se'i Rabbanan, if it's according to the Rabbanan, my area Oikrin. So then why would the Braisa just say that, you're allowed to work with the guy to uproot the Kalayim? Afil Kiyumi Nami, Shaper Dami. Even to maintain the Kalayim, even if the Yid comes along and builds a fence around this Kalayim, doing anything to be Mekayim, the Kalayim would also be allowed. Why would the Braisa only say Oikrin? So that's the reason why the Gemara Lechatchila was thinking to say the Savrua that it said before, that it goes according to Rabbi Akiva, because according to Rabbi Akiva, it makes sense to say, you're not allowed to be Mekayim the Kalayim, but nevertheless, if you want it to be there in order for you to come to do the job, to uproot it, that's allowed. So therefore it would make sense according to Rabbi Akiva. So the Gemara says, no, there's actually a third way how to learn this Braisa. Not Rabbi Akiva, but another opinion. Says the Gemara, Hacha b'maya skinon, we can say that what is this Braisa talking about? Kagayin the ka'avid b'china. That what the person is doing is, he's doing this for the guy, and he's actually not even getting paid at all. He's doing it for free. So as Rashi says, the Gemara now is saying, we could still say that this Braisa is not coming to say according to Rabbi Akiva, it's according to the Rabbanan. Why is the Braisa saying, Dafka, this case of, that you're allowed to come to be Oiker the Kalayim? Because it's going according to Rabbi Yehuda. When you do work for a guy for free, Rabbi Yehuda, this is a chiddush according to Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. The Amar Rabbi Yehuda says, we have this all the way in the beginning towards the beginning of the Masechta, that liten lahem matnas chinam aser. To give a guy a gift, you're giving him something for free is aser. This is learned out from what it says B'negei to a guy. The pasuk says lo yisachanim. You're not allowed to do something in order to find favor in the eyes of the guy. One of the pirushim of lo yisachanim is this point, that you shouldn't give a guy a gift for free. So over here, what is this Braisa saying? That even though you shouldn't be working for free for the guy, but if what you're doing is to uproot Kalayim, then it's allowed. So therefore, what the Gemara is suggesting to say is, there's no proof from here to the case of the Yayin Nesach. By Yayin Nesach, we're talking about where there's an Isser of, you want it to be Reitze B'Kiyumai, and there the question is whether you can have a no from what you're being paid to break those barrels. Over here, though, this Braisa is not talking about the Isser of Reitze B'Kiyumai. Over here, there's a different Isser, that you're doing work for a guy for free. And under that, the Braisa is saying that you can do this as long as you're coming to be Oiker, the client. Okay, but now the Gemara says, based on this itself, even if this is the pshat that this Braisa is talking about for free, according to Rabbi Yehuda, but midivrei Rabbi Yehuda nishma le Rabbi Akiva. From what we're saying, that if this Braisa is going like Rabbi Yehuda, I can apply the exact same thing according to Rabbi Akiva's opinion as well. Because Lav Omar Rabbi Yehuda, isn't it that Rabbi Yehuda is saying that asid le machnes chinam, you're not allowed to give a guy a gift for free. So in this case, to do work for the guy in his field without pay is not allowed. But then the Braisa comes and says, but if what you're doing is to uproot the Kalayim, which is called Tifla, and Shaper Dami, that's okay, even though there's an Isser. Because over here, you're not stam doing work for a guy. What you're really doing is to uproot the Kalayim. So if so, let Rabbi Akiva nami. I can say that according to Rabbi Akiva as well. Even though Rabbi Akiva said anytime you maintain kalayim, you get malchus. So therefore, over here in this case where you're being hired to uproot this kalayim, you're interested in that kalayim being there for you to do this work. But nevertheless, lemute tifla shapidami. But since the point there is to uproot this kalayim, so then it's allowed. So therefore, even if this Braisa is according to Rabbi Yehuda, I can still prove that the same point applies according to Rabbi Akiva. And if so, I can prove from here to the psak din of Rav Nachman regarding the Yid that was hired to break the barrels of the Yayin Nesach, that even though there's an Isser of Reitzah B'Kiyumai, but in this case where he wants the Kiyum of the Yayin Nesach, but for what purpose? In order for him to break it, it's going to be mutter. So the Gemara concludes, V'su loy midi. There's nothing else to be said about this matter, which means the Raya from this Braisa to Rav Nachman's Psak Din is a good Raya.
That means you jumped from free to even paying now because Rabbi Kiva is paying.
Yeah, it's being paid,
I mean,
but it's
I mean,
too.
this Brisa is.
Yeah, correct. There's two different ways that you can learn this Braisa, but the point remains the same. That when there's an Isser, but you're doing it in order to uproot the Kalayim, over here it's going to be allowed. And the same will apply to the Yayin Nesach. Now, there's another Shaila that they had, these Amirayim that were sitting together. Hadar, Yosvi, they were sitting again together, and here they had the following Shaila. Also connected to Avoda Zara, but a different subject. The money of Avoda Zara, which is in the hands of a guy. Mahu, what's the halacha with this money? So this is based on what we learned earlier in the Masechta, that you learn out from Vehisa Cherem Kamayu, that if a Yid sells Avoda Zara, the money that he earns from this has the same Isser Hana like the Avoda Zara itself. The question though is, does that apply by a guy as well? When a guy sells his Avoda Zara, now the money that the guy has in his possession, will the Isser Hana take effect on that money as well? Me tefesses the mouth, does the Isser Hana take effect on this money as well? Biyad Evkechavim, when it's in the hands of a guy, oiloi. Or this pasuk v'hayisa cherem kamayu, which is talking to Yidden, only applies when a Yid sells Avoda Zara, not in the case of a guy that sold his Avoda Zara. So Amalu Rav Nachman, so Rav Nachman answered, Mistavra, it's logical to say that the may avodas kechavim, biyad oive kechavim, the money of the Avoda Zara that a guy has in his hands from the Avoda Zara that he sold, mutarim. They are mutar. And the raya that he brought is because medahanu, the asla kamei the Rabbi Baravua. There were these gayim that came in front of Rabbi Baravua, they wanted to become gaidim. And Amaluhu, so he told them, Zilu zvinu, kol mave islachu, go sell all your Avoda Zara that you have, and then Visu is Gairu. And after that, come and you'll be Megayah. Okay, so what was he saying to them? My time, and what was the reason that he was telling them that they should sell their Avoda Zara before they're going to be Megayah? So the Bach adds here, Lav, don't you think the reason is Mishum de Kesava, because Rabbi Baravua holds the May Avodas Kechavim B'Yadav Kechavim Mutarim, that if they're going to sell their Avoda Zara after they're going to become Gaidim, so then the money of the Avoda Zara is going to be Aser. But if they're going to sell it when they're still Goyim, and then the money that they get in exchange does not get the Isser Hana of Avoda Zara, and therefore they're going to be able to use this money. So let them sell it while they're still Goyim, and then later they should become Gaidim. That's the basis of this halacha that you see here. But the Gemara says, not necessarily can you prove anything from this case, from the story of Rabbi Baravua. Because Vidil Mishani Hassam, maybe over there it's different. Even the Daita that since these people that came to Rabbi Baravua, they wanted to become Gaidim, Vadei Botla. They were definitely Mevatel, their Avoda Zara already from before. Before they came to Rabbi Baravua, they already were mevatel their Avoda Zara. As we learned earlier in the Masechta, a Yid can't be mevatel Avoda Zara, but a guy can be mevatel Avoda Zara. You break it in different Nefanim how you are mevatel Avoda Zara. They were definitely mevatel Avoda Zara before. And that's why Rabbi Baravua told them that go and sell your Avoda Zara. And the reason why the money that they will get for this Avoda Zara that they sell will not be Yaseh Bahana is because they already broke. They were already mevatel their Avoda Zara. So therefore, there's no raya to the psak din of Rav Nachman. Now, the pshat that I'm saying in the Gemara is Rashi's pshat. That when the Gemara says Vadei Batla, it means that they definitely were mevatel their Avoda Zara before they came to Rabbi Baravua. But other Rishonim say that the pshat is different. Not that they were mevatel it before. Because if they were mevatel it before, then what do they have to sell it for? They were already mevatel their Avoda Zara. They can keep it as is. It's batel. So what's the point of selling? So therefore, the Rishonim say when it says here Vadei Batla, what it means is that when they're going to sell the Avoda Zara, this selling it in itself will be mevatel the Avoda Zara. This is something that the Gemara discussed earlier in the Masechta. If a guy owns an Avoda Zara and he goes and sells his Avoda Zara, selling it itself shows that he's not machshav the Avoda Zara anymore. Will that be mevatel the Avoda Zara? So the Gemara earlier in the Masechta brings a machloikas about this. But in this case, the Rishonim say, you see the person wants to be megayah, and that's why he's selling his Avoda Zara. Definitely the fact that he's selling it shows that he's not machshav it and it's going to be batel. That's what the Gemara means when it says here, Vadei Batla, by the selling itself. Okay, but according to Rashi, the Mefarshim say that Rashi holds that no, they were mevatel it already before, but nevertheless, Rabbi Baravua told them to sell it because of Marasayan. They're becoming Gadim, and they had the Avoda Zara that they had served before in their possession, and he's telling them that you were mevatel it already, I know, but sell it off before you become Gadim. So you shouldn't have this old Avoda that was once Avoda Zara even in their possession. Okay, but the point here is that there's no raya from this story of Rabbi Baravua to the case of Rav Nachman, that the money in the hands of a guy from what he sold from Avoda Zara would be mutter ba'ana. So therefore the Gemara brings a different raya. Ela mahacha, the raya is from the following brayse. Yisrael shoyanoishe ba'evekachavim maneh. A yid that was collecting money from a guy that he owed him money. So machar avedis kechavim. So the guy goes and sells his Avoda Zara in order to pay his loan. V'heviloi, he brings in the payment. Or yayin nesach, the guy sells his yayin nesach. And v'heviloi, and he brings in the payment. Mutter, that money that the guy is paying with what he sold from Avoda Zara is mutter. So right over here, you clearly see exactly like Rav Nachman said, that the money that the guy earns from what he sells from his Avoda Zara or yayin nesach is mutter to give to the yid. It's mutter ba'ana. But then the Brisa says, Aval imam aloi, if the guy tells the yid that's coming to collect his loan, hamtenli, wait, I don't have money, so wait for me, until I sell my Avoda Zara, and I'll bring you the payment, or yayin nesach, I'll sell the yayin nesach, and I'll bring you the payment, then aser. Then it will be aser. In this case, as the Gemara is going to explain right now, in this case, when the guy is telling the yid to wait, and I'm going to sell my Avoda Zara, then it'll be aser. Okay, but the point is, we have here a clear Brisa, like Rav Nachman said. Let's see. Zok the frakte Gemara, Maishna Reisha, Maishna Seife. What's the difference? Well, in the Reisha, we see that if you sell the Avoda Zara, the guy sells Avoda Zara, and now he gets the money. That money is mutter ba'ana. So why in the Seife, if he tells the Yid, wait for me to sell my Avoda Zara, why then should it be Aser? Rav Sheshe, so Rav Sheshe says, Seife, in the Seife, the reason is, Mishum dahava lei ki reitze b'kiyumai, because this is similar to a case where the Yid is interested in maintaining the existence of this Avoda Zara. The Chiddush over here, what the Gemara is saying is, this is not the regular concept of Reitze B'Kiyumai. Reitze B'Kiyumai is when a Yid has Avoda Zara and he's doing a certain action that expresses his interest in maintaining this Avoda Zara. In this case, the Avoda Zara is in the possession of the guy. And Elamai, the Yid is interested in the guy having this Avoda Zara in order to sell it to pay him. So the fact that the guy tells the Yid, wait for me, I'm going to sell now my Avoda Zara and then I'm going to pay you. So right then the Yid is standing there and waiting, the Yid is Reitze B'Kiyumai. So the Chiddush of the Gemara here is, this is not the Issur of Reitze B'Kiyumai min HaTorah, even according to those Rishonim that say that this is min HaTorah, but this is a case where the Yid is not doing any action. But what the Seif of this Bryce is saying is that in such a case where the Yid knows, I'm not going to get paid my loan, I know this guy has no money, I'm not going to get paid my loan unless this guy is going to sell his Avoda Zara, this is also included in the Issur. It's similar to Reitze B'Kiyumai, that you're waiting for the guy to have his Avoda Zara and to be able to sell it to bring you money. And therefore, even this kind of Reitze B'Kiyumai is also going to be Yasser. This kind of Reitze B'Kiyumai, where you're not even doing anything to maintain the Avoda Zara or to express the fact that you want the Avoda Zara to be, you're just waiting for the guy to go and sell it to bring you the money. This kind of Reitze B'Kiyumai will be Aser. But Vatnan, we learned in the Mishnah, Ger v'evikachavim sheyarshu aviyim, a ger, and then he has his brother, which is still a guy, and their father dies, and they're inheriting their father. So now, in such a case, the halacha actually is that the ger doesn't really get any Yerusha from his father. Man, I tell you that there's no din Yerusha here. This ger is gershin is gar kikotn shenayladami. It's like he's a new Metzias. He's born again. He doesn't really min hatayra have any Yerusha from his father. So in such a case, the ger yachal loy maloi. The ger could say to his brother, the guy, taylata v'edis kachavim, from the possessions of our father, you take the Avoda Zara. Va'ani mois, and I'm going to take the money. Toilat yayin nesach, you take the yayin nesach, va'ani peiris, and I'm going to take the produce. That's mutter. And the reason it's mutter is because usually by Avoda Zara, if you're exchanging with someone else for Avoda Zara the money or a produce instead of yayin nesach, it would be aser. But as I said before, in this case, the ger never really yashin his father. Elamai, there's actually a takanas chachamim. There's a takanas chachamim that a ger should yashin his father a goy, because we don't want a ger to say to himself, look, I became a ger, now I can't yashin my father, which is a millionaire, and he's going to lose all this money. So therefore chachamim said that he gets the Yerusha as well. But it's not a real Yerusha here. So therefore, when he says to his brother, you take the Avoda Zara and I take the money, it's not considered to be an exchange. He never had it to now exchange it for the money. What he's saying to his brother is, in this Yerusha, that's yours and this is mine. And in such a case, Chachamim will not geyser, he's able to get this, and it's not considered to be an exchange for the Avoda Zara. Okay, but that's if they made this up l'chatchila. But if he already took this Avoda Zara from his father in his possession, and now he has it, and now he wants to exchange with his brother for money, then also. And then it's going to be Yasser, because that's an exchange for Avoda Zara, and then even the money is going to be Yasser Bahana. So, what do you see over here from this Braise? That in this case, the Yid is interested in this Avoda Zara that came be Yerusha from his father. He's Reitze B'Kiyumai. He wants it to be. And what does this Braise say? That it's mutter in such it's mutter in such a case. The Yid over here, is he doing any this ger? Is he doing any action that he wants with this kiyum of Avoda Zara? He's not doing any action, but it's important to him. It's important to him for this Avoda Zara to remain, in order for him to be able to say to his brother, "You take the Avoda Zara and I take the money." And what does it say over here in the Mishnah? Sorry, it's not a Bryce. What does it say in the Mishnah? That it's mutter. That he can make this deal with his brother. So if so, the Gemara is asking, why over here, when a guy comes to pay his loan, and the guy tells the Yid, wait, I'm going to sell my Avoda Zara and then pay you my loan, why should it be us? Why should it be us? It's the exact same thing. That you're going to wait for the guy to sell his Avoda Zara and give you the money. It should be mutter, just like in this case, where the ger tells his brother, you're going to take the Avoda Zara and then I'll be able to take the money. So the Gemara answers, Rav Bar Ula. So Rav Bar Ula tries to answer Masnisa, and this Mishnah is speaking about this is an Avoda Zara that the reason why it's valuable, it's not because it's an Avoda Zara. Even if the whole thing breaks and it's not going to be an Avoda Zara anymore, it still has value. Because it's gold, it's silver, it's something that is just intrinsically valuable. And therefore, in this case, it's not that he wants the kiyum of the Avoda Zara. He doesn't want the kiyum of Avoda Zara at all. He doesn't let the whole Avoda Zara break. But it's still going to have value because of it being gold and silver. So this is not a case of Reitze B'Kiyumei at all. Says the Gemara, Teinach Avodas Kechavim. You could say this answer regarding the first case of this Mishnah, where it says that the Yid and his brother, the guy, they're exchanging here for Avodah Zara. Well, Yayin Nesach Ma'yikal Meimar. The second case it mentions is Yayin Nesach. So over here, the whole value of this is the wine. If it's going to spill out this wine, so then you're not going to have any wine left over anymore. So he does want the kiyum of this wine. And still it says here that it's mutter. It says the Gemara, the answer is that it's actually not talking about wine. It's talking about becheres hadar yaini, which is something that we had earlier in the Masechta. What's cheres hadar yaini? This is what they made in those times when the armies would go out to fight and they couldn't carry these barrels of wine with them. So in order to have what to drink, tasty wine, what they did is they took these fresh earthenware and they soaked it in wine, and it absorbed all the wine in it, and then they would break it. And then you can take little broken pieces of this earthenware and put into a cup of water, and then the taste of it would come out, and it would be very geschmack to drink. So that's what we're talking about over here. This cheres hadar yaini, even if it breaks apart, it's still there. It still will exist. So therefore, over here, he's not reitze b'kiyumei at all. Okay, so even if it all breaks apart, he still has the value of it. So this is not a case of reitze b'kiyumei at all. But reitze b'kiyumei shelo yignoiv shelo yavdu. In order for him to be able to exchange with his brother, I'm going to take the money, and you're going to take the Avodah Zara, or this Yayin Nesach that's in this earthenware, he has to have it. Shouldn't get stolen or lost. So this is still a case of Reitze B'Kiyumai. And what does it say here? That when you're Reitze B'Kiyumai, not by doing any action, but by the fact that your brother will have it, so that you could get the money in exchange, it's mutter. So the same thing should be regarding a person that's getting paid a loan by a guy, that if he has Avodah Zara and the guy tells him, wait, I'm going to sell my Avodah Zara and then I'll pay you, it should also be mutter. This kind of Reitze B'Kiyumei, you're not doing any action to express your interest in the existence, you're just waiting for the guy to sell it for you, it should be allowed. So along with Rav Papa explains why this Mishnah is not a contradiction to the Braisa before regarding the payment of the loan. So Rav Papa says, Yerusha Sager Kamret, you're asking a question from this Mishnah that's speaking about the Yerusha of a Ger. Shani Yerusha Sager, the whole Yerusha of a Ger is completely different. Ta'kilu bar Abanon over there, there's a special leniency, the Chacham will makel. As I mentioned before, B'chlal, the whole concept of Yerushas Ager is that the Kanas Chachamim. Minatayra, a Ger doesn't get a Yerusha. So by a Ger, where Chachamim were misaken, that he should yashin from his father, Chachamim were extra lenient that this type of Reitze B'kiyumai should not be a problem. Why? Because Gzeira Sham Yachzel Kulkulai. Because the whole reason Chachamim will geyser that a Ger that is Sheyashin his father is because we don't want him to go back to his old ways. And therefore, over here, Chachamim allowed this kind of Reitze B'kiyumai, even though by the loan, by getting paid a loan, this kind of Reitze B'kiyumai is Aser, but by the Ger, the Chachamim were Mekel and said that it's Mutar. Tanya Nami Yachi, we can prove this, and we see that this point is a special kula by the Yerushas Ager, as the Braisa says. When could you make this deal with the guy, your brother, that he takes the Avoda Zara and you take the money that's by a Yerusha? So that's a special kula of the Chachamim. Avol nishtatfu aser. But if there's a shutfis between a Yid and a guy, and now you want to split up this shutfis, and you're going to take money, and the guy will take Avoda Zara from this shutfis, over there it will not be allowed. Because over here, in this case, you don't have that kula that the Chachamim said applies regarding a Yerushas Ager, that Chachamim don't want him to go back to his old ways. Okay, the Gemara continues and brings a third shaila that these Amirim sitting together asked. Hada Yosfi, they were again sitting together and becoming Bayaluhu, and they had the following shaila. Ger Taishav, Mao Sheyivatel, Oivikechavim, a Ger Taishav, which the Gemara will soon describe, different opinions, what exactly a Ger Taishav is, but he's definitely a person that's not serving Avoda Zara. So, Mao Sheyivatel, Avodas Kechavim. Can he be Mevatel and Avoda Zara? So we learned before that a Goy could be Mevatel Avoda Zara. A Yid cannot be Mevatel Avoda Zara. The question is, a Ger Taishav, which is not serving Avoda Zara, could he be Mevatel Avoda Zara? What's the shaila? Do I say the Palach Maftel, one that serves Avoda Zara, he could be Mevatel Avoda Zara. If he was the one that was serving it, and now he's rejecting it, that takes away its significance. But the Loi Palach, if he doesn't serve Avoda Zara, Loi Maftel, even though he's not a Yid, he's a guy, but he can't be Mevatel Avoda Zara. Or perhaps I say, call the Bar Minei Maftel. If he's a Bar Minei, he's in that category, he's a guy. And even though he's not B'Poil serving Avoda Zara, but he's in that category, he's not a Yid, he can be Mevatel Avoda Zara. V'hai Bar Minei. And therefore, since he is a guy, although he's not himself serving Avoda Zara, but he's a guy, so he can be Mevatel Avoda Zara. Rav Nachman, so Rav Nachman answers, Mistavra, it's logical to say, the Palach Maftel, that a guy that serves Avoda Zara, he could nullify the Avoda Zara, the Loi Palach, Loi Maftel. If he's not serving Avoda Zara, he cannot nullify the Avoda Zara. Okay, so the Gemara asks on this Psaktin of Rav Nachman, Meisvei, they asked from the following Braisa, it says, Yisrael Shamatza Avodas Kechavim B'Shuk, a Yid finds Avoda Zara on the floor. So now he wants to take it for himself. So before he picks it up, the moment he picks it up, he's kainet, it's his. Once it's his, a Yid cannot be mevatel Avoda Zara that he owns. So before it comes to his hands, he says to a guy that you go ahead and be mevatel this Avoda Zara, and then the Yid will be able to take it for himself. But once it came into the Yid's hands, he was kainet. He can't tell a guy to be mevatel this Avoda Zara, because the rule that was said about this is a guy has the ability to nullify the significance of the Avoda Zara, and that's shaloi v'shal. Whether this Avoda Zara is owned by him, or even if it's not, even if it's an Avoda Zara that belongs to his friend. And then the Braisa adds, Bein oivda or bein she'ein oivda. Whether this guy is worshipping this Avoda Zara or whether he's not. So the Gemara explains here the last few words of the Braisa seems to be a question on what Rav Nachman paskent. Mai oivda or mai she'ein oivda. What does the Braisa mean when it says that the guy could be mevatel Avoda Zara whether he's worshipping or not? Now, if you'll think to say that idi v'idi oivekachavim, that in both cases we're talking about a person that's serving Avoda Zara. And what is it saying? Whether it's his Avoda Zara that he's serving, whether it's not his Avoda Zara that he's serving. But he is a Avoda Zara. But so if that's what it means when it says these words, Bein Oivda or Bein She'ein Oivda, it had already said that. Hainu Shaloi v'Shal Chaveira. It just said whether it belongs to him, whether it belongs to his friend. So Elalav, don't you think what's the pshat when it adds those words, Bein Oivda or Bein She'ein Oivda? What does it mean? Oivda is Oivda Oivda means it's a guy that serves Avoda Zara. He could be mevatel any Avoda Zara. And my she'eina oivda, what does it mean when it says eina oivda? That means a ger toishav. That's a person that's a ger toishav, a guy that's a ger toishav that's not serving Avoda Zara. If so, from the words of this brayso, I see that ger toishav nami mevatel, that a ger toishav could be mevatel Avoda Zara, not like the psak din of Rav Nachman. Says the Gemara, Eloi, that's not the pshat in the words of the brayso. Eloi lamei malach, I can tell you, idi v'idi oivekachavim. Both of the statements of the brayso, when it first says that the guy could be mevatel his Avoda Zara and his friends Avoda Zara, and also when it says bein oivda, whether he's not serving it, it's both talking about a guy that's serving Avoda Zara. So if so, it's the same thing. What's the brayso repeating again? And when it says whether he's serving it, whether not, the answer is there's two different scenarios in this case itself. Reisha, the first point the brayso is saying is zev v'zeh le'pa'or, when you and your friend serve the same Avoda Zara, you serve the same type of Avoda Zara. They both serve the Avoda Zara of pa'or, or v'zeh v'zeh le'markulis. They both serve the same Avoda Zara of markulis. So on that, the brayso says you're serving the same type of Avoda Zara, but this is not your Avoda Zara. This is your friend's Avoda Zara. You can be mevatlet as well. And then Seifer, the next point that the brayso adds is another point, a further of level, which is Zeh le'pa'or. If one guy, he serves Avoda Zara, but not the same kind. He serves Avoda Zara of pa'or. V'zeh le'markulis. And your friend, the guy, he serves markulis. So you're not serving that kind of Avoda Zara. You serve a different kind of Avoda Zara. Here as well, you could be mevatlet Avoda Zara. But when could you be mevatlet Avoda Zara? Only if you're yourself serving some kind of Avoda Zara. So therefore, the psakner of Nachman still remains that if this guy is not serving any Avoda Zara at all, you can't be mevatel Avoda Zara. The Gemara asks Rav Nachman from a different brayso. Meisvei, the brayso says, "Ezel ger toishav." So here in this brayso, this is always brought, and there's different. Here's the three opinions of what is a ger toishav. So who is this ger toishav that we always speak about? Kol, so the first opinion is Kol shekibel olav b'fnei gimel chaverim. It's a guy that accepts upon himself in front of three chaverim, in front of three yidden. They have to be chaverim on a level like a bezdin. Shaloi lavid avedas kachavim, not to serve Avoda Zara. Divrei Rab Meir. This is Rab Meir's opinion. So he's not doing anything more than this, just not to serve Avoda Zara. He becomes a ger toishav. Sorry, a ger toishav has a certain unique status. He's supposed to v'chayimach, he's supposed to give him to eat from your nevelis. So that's just by not serving Avoda Zara. The Chachamim say, Kol shekibel olav sheva mitzvahs shekiblu aleim b'nei noyach. He has to come and accept upon himself to fulfill all of the sheva mitzvahs b'nei noyach. Even though, all Goyim, B'chlal, are supposed to fulfill Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noyach, but over here, he has to come specifically in front of us, and we know that he's accepting upon himself to fulfill the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noyach. Only then does he become a ger toishav. Acherim say, third opinion, this is actually not Rab Meir. Usually Acherim is Rab Meir, but we just had Rab Meir here before. So this is another opinion that says that these two, loy ba'al l'chlal ger toishav. They're not yet on the level of a ger toishav. Ele ezel ger toishav. Who is the ger toishav? Ze ger oichel nevelos. This is a ger. The only thing that he's not fulfilling is that he eats nevelos. He eats non-kosher food. But shekibel olav lekayim kol mitzvahs ha'amuris b'teira. Otherwise, he accepts upon himself to fulfill all mitzvahs, chutz mi'isser nevelis. Besides the isser of eating nevelis. That's who a ger toishav is. Okay, that's the beginning of this brayso. So these details about who a ger toishav is not really relevant for the hemshech. But here, this is the source of the brayso where it brings the different opinions about who a ger toishav is. Okay, now the brayso says regarding this ger toishav, miyachten etzlo yayin, you can give him wine to hold for you, even though this ger toishav is going to be alone with the wine, and there may be a concern that he would touch the wine or tamper with it or allow a Avoda Zara to come and touch it. But we're not concerned about this because this ger toishav, according to all opinions, he doesn't serve Avoda Zara, and he's also not going to allow a guy that's Avoda Zara to come and touch it. Why? What would he gain by that? He's not going to allow a guy to do this. So therefore, you could be miyachid the wine with him. But ve'eim afkidin etzlo yayin. However, you can't put the wine by him as a deposit for a long period of time. So miyachtin is you tell him that I'm going away for a short while and I'm coming right back. That you're allowed to leave it by him, but not over an extended period of time, because then there's a concern that if it's a long period of time, he may exchange his wine with your wine, and his wine is still going to be us. It's still stam yenim of a guy. It's still going to be us. So then, in that case, if it's a long period of time, you're not allowed. And that's Vafila Be'ir Sharubi Yisrael, even in a city where it's mostly Yidden. But this that you're allowed to keep wine being for a short period of time, that's allowed, even in a city that's mostly goyim. And the Brisa goes on to say, Shamnoi keyenoi. The halacha of his oil will be the same like his wine. Okay, so the Gemara explains what this means. Why would his oil be like his wine? Shamnoi keyenoi sol kedaitach. His oil has a halacha like his wine. Could you say such a thing? Why would the oil be have the same status like the wine of a guy? Says the Gemara. That's not what it means. So the Gemara asks it. Shemen mi kahave yayin nesach. Will we ever say regarding oil, even by a regular guy that's Avoda Zara, does oil have a halacha like yayin nesach? What does the Brisa mean that his oil is like his wine? Ella says the Gemara. No, it has to be read the opposite. Yainoi kishamnoi. His wine has the halacha like his oil. What's the halacha regarding oil? So Rashi here says, we're talking about the oil in the time when Chachamim made a gzeira not to eat from the oil of Gayim. So it's mutter bahana, but it's also to drink from it. So the same thing regarding the wine of this ger toishav, it's going to be mutter bahana, but it's going to be also to drink from it like the oil of a Gayim. And the Brisa goes on to say, and it's this line that the Gemara is going to focus on to ask the question on Rav Nachman, Uleshar kol dover, this ger toishav, regarding everything else, harei hu ka'ev kechavim. He still has a status like a guy. Okay, now one more thing, the Brisa says, Rab Shimon's opinion is that Yainoi Yayin Nesach. This ger toishav, actually, his wine still has the status of Yayin Nesach, because even though he himself does not serve Avoda Zara, we're concerned that he's going to allow a guy that is a Avoda Zara to come and use his wine for Avoda Zara. Amrillah, another opinion regarding what Rab Shimon said is that mutter b'shtiyah. Rab Shimon actually said, no, he was completely lenient. He said that by a ger toishav, that not only is his wine not aser bahana, it's not even aser to drink. It's completely mutter. Because Rab Shimon Bechlal, Gemara brought before, Rab Shimon held whatever is mutter b'shtiyah is also mutter bahana. We're not geyser on the shtiyah for itself. Okay, now here the Gemara goes back to one line that it said here about the ger toishav. Katani mi, what did it say here in the Braisa? Or the shar kol dvarav. For everything else, he's still a guy. Now, regarding what is it saying that this ger toishav still has a status as a guy? So, don't you think that it's coming to say regarding this halacha that we're discussing here, the mevatel avedes kechavim ka'ev kechavim, that he has the ability to nullify the status of an Avoda Zara like a guy that serves Avoda Zara? So this is a question on Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman said that a guy that's not worshipping Avoda Zara himself cannot nullify the status of Avoda Zara. Says the Gemara, no, that's not the pshat in this Braisa. It's not a question on Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman of Yitzchak, so Rav Nachman of Yitzchak explains, loy, that's not what it's referring to. It's referring to a completely different halacha. It's referring to the halacha that applies to a Eruve Chatzeris. What's the halacha of Eruve Chatzeris? Chachamim were geyser that when you have a courtyard where there's a lot of houses open into this courtyard, that you're not allowed to carry out from a private home into the courtyard, which is a shared area, because it looks similar to carrying out on Shabbos into what a Rosh Hashanah, which is a public domain. So therefore, Chachamim guys are not to carry from the house into the courtyard. What's the eitzah? What do? Eruve Chatzeris, which means that everybody has food where they place in one house, so that's going to be their main place of dwelling. So there's only one house that everybody's living in. So then the entire courtyard all becomes an area that's owned by one house, by one area. That's the concept of Eruve Chatzeris. Okay, so now here, in connection to this, the Gemara says that by this ger toishav that's living in this courtyard, litein rishos ulevata rishos, to give his domain and to be mevatel his domain, that he will not be able to do this. Okay, the Tanya, as we learned in the Braisa. So what is this talking about? Eruve Chatzeris must be done before Shabbos. You can't establish where you're going to be living to make the Eruve Chatzeris on Shabbos itself. What happens if you have a Yid that's living in the courtyard that did not participate in the Eruve Chatzeris before Shabbos? What do? So besides the Eruve Chatzeris, there's something that's called Bitl Rishus. That Yid that has his own house and did not participate in the Eruve Chatzeris says, I'm being mevatel my rights of using this courtyard. So therefore, the fact that I have a separate ownership of here is not going to ask you to carry here. I'm giving up my rights. That's what's called mevatel rishus. That's what a yid could do. Only a yid could do this, but not a guy, as we'll see. Because the Tanya, the Braisa says, Yisrael mumar, A Yid that's a Mummer, meaning he himself, he does not keep Shabbos. But Mishamesh Shabbat B'Shuk. But publicly in the street, he does keep Shabbos. Mevatel Rishus. So if he is living in this courtyard and he forgot to participate in the Eruv Chatzeres on Shabbos itself, he could be Mevatel, he could say, I give up my rights to this courtyard, and then everyone will be able to carry there. But if this is a Yid that does not keep Shabbos even publicly, then then he does not have the ability to give up his rights of the courtyard to allow everyone else to carry there. Why? Because the following rule was said. Only a Yid living in the courtyard is able to give up his rights of the Rishos in order for Yid to be able to carry there. But, however, by a guy that lives amongst them, this cannot be done. By a guy that lives in a courtyard where Yidden live, the only eitzah to be able to carry in this courtyard is if you're going to rent his house from him. You rent his rights from him, then you're going to be able to carry in this courtyard. Keitzad, and how is this done? You say to the guy, Rishusi kanuyalach, or the guy says, my Rishus is going to be acquired to you, Rishusi muvutelislach. Kana, this is regarding the bittul of Rishus. By a bittul of Rishus, so he says, my Rishus is acquired to all of you, my Rishus is bottled to all of you, ve'ein tzarich lezakais. You don't have to make any kinyan for this. The concept of bittul Rishus is even without a kinyan. It's just by words that you mevatel. But this does not apply by a guy that lives amongst Yidden. Why not? So the Gemara Ne'eruvin says that this is a special gzeira that Chachamim made. They did not want Goyim to live in the same courtyard with Yidden. You're going to come to be friends with them and learn from their ways. So therefore, a guy that lives there, he cannot be mevatlis rishus so easily like that. What do you have to do? You have to rent from him his rishus. And that will be inconvenient, and then therefore you're not going to want to have Goyim living amongst them. It's this halacha that when it said here in the Braisa that the Ger Toshav still has a halacha like a guy that it was referring to. That a Ger Toshav that lives amongst Yidden in this courtyard, he still has a halacha of a guy that he won't be able to be mevatel his rishus. You're going to have to rent it from him. But regarding the halacha that Rav Nachman said, that's still true. That this Ger Toshav does not have the ability to be mevatel Avoda Zara since he's not serving Avoda Zara himself.